Hey friends, welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, insane people, and all that kind of stuff. So be sure to subscribe for more Reddit content, and let's get into today's stories. Lady wants my rollator. For those that don't know, a rollator is basically a walker on wheels. I had a stroke 6 years ago and my balance and vision got messed up. I can walk maybe 20 to 25 feet on a flat surface without help, but I need my rollator to take long walks and take it with me whenever I go somewhere. I normally have weekly groceries delivered to me at my apartment, but every month or 6 weeks, depending on schedules, my mom will take me to a specialty grocery store where I can get a lot of prepackaged meals that I just have to put in the microwave for a while. We were on one of these trips and were waiting in line at checkout. The rollator that insurance covers was a piece of cheap white plastic, so last Christmas my mom bought me one that is black steel and titanium composition. It also has a pouch on the back for storing things, and when I need a break I can lock the wheels and it has a fold-out bench I can sit on. So while my groceries were being checked out, I folded out the bench and sat down waiting. When we were done, I got up and unlocked the wheels, while my mom rolled out my cart of groceries. I had barely got 5 feet when a lady walked up and grabbed my rollator, saying, "I'll take this." I said no, and jerked it away from her and proceeded to follow my mom out to the parking lot. This lady followed us out to the car and was waiting there tapping her foot while we loaded the groceries. I didn't trust her, so I just stood holding the rollator. My mom said, "Go ahead, get in, it's unlocked." And I just shook my head no and tried to subtly point at the lady as to why I wasn't getting in. Mom understood and finished loading the groceries. When she was done, she came up to me, folded down the rollator while I walked to the passenger side door. Mom folded down the rollator, put it on top of the bags in the car, and was closing the door, when the lady started shrieking about how we were stealing store property. I don't know if someone got him or what, but a manager type came out and asked what was going on. The lady screamed about how we were stealing the rollator and she needed to use it. The manager asked my mom about it and she said it was mine, and even showed him the plaques bolted on that had my name, emergency contacts, medications, and the schedule I was on in case I needed them. The lady kept screaming that she needed it now that we were done. The manager told her that it was mine, it had information on it that pertained only to me, and that if she needed help they could find her a mobility scooter or something. She didn't like this, and suddenly went from shrieking harpy to sweet old lady, saying, "Well, maybe she could leave it here and I could use it and leave it when I am done for them to come back and get." The manager asked, "Would that be okay with you?" And my mom, knowing we would never see it again, said that we couldn't. We had other places to go where I would need it. The lady began screaming again while we just drove off. I don't know how it ended up for the manager, but I hope he survived it. Neighbor reported me and my Hispanic contractor to the city. So a little over a year and a half ago, my wife and I were able to purchase our forever home in a nice suburban neighborhood. The only downside is the deck was basically falling off the house. So the day we moved in, our neighbor Fred comes wandering over. Fred owns a small contracting company that does garbage work. Our other neighbors warned us, and he was telling us to let him know when we are ready to do our deck. Well, needless to say, we don't want to use him. A friend of ours referred us to his friend, Jesus. He's Hispanic. Doesn't speak much English, but he does beautiful work and charges next to nothing for cash. So we obviously decide to hire Jesus. Jesus gets going, demos the old deck in hours, and had been doing an awesome job. Effing Fred starts coming down into my yard and bothering Jesus every other day, telling him he's doing crap wrong or whatever. The city approved our plan and issued a permit, so our guy is doing everything to code. So last week Jesus is wrapping up and I'm talking to him. He just was annoyed with Fred, obviously. I told him if he comes back that I will deal with it. So sure as hell, Fred wanders back and asks about our permits and Jesus's legal status. This irritated the crap out of me. First off, way to be a walking, talking, bitter old man. Second, mind your own effing business. I'm not trying to get in a war with my neighbor, even if he's a lumbering sack of dog crap, so I just say, yep, everything is legally in order, thanks. It's clear that Fred is bitter that we didn't use his company. The next day, the city inspector shows up. Apparently, there was a complaint that we hired illegals to do our work and lied about who was actually doing the work. Jesus was gracious enough to show the inspector his ID and even had copies of his LLC paperwork in his van. I was surprised that he had it, but he told me this isn't uncommon when he works in nicer neighborhoods. He was completely unfazed, but I was effing livid. The inspector was apologetic and just asked Jesus to keep his music down, because that was the neighbor's biggest complaint. There was no music, not even once. I pointed out the complete absence of any music listening device. Jesus just thanked the inspector and said he'd keep it down. At that point, I was ready to burn Fred's house down. I settled with knocking on his door and telling him if he set foot on my property again, that I would report him for trespassing. As I turn to walk away, he calls me a disgrace and a traitor. Apparently, there are thousands of out-of-work Americans who deserve that work, and I'm a liberal apologist. I'm not political at all. I told him his company has a crap reputation, and it is his own fault that it's failing. Later that day, he had the audacity to call my wife and ask if she'd water his plants next week while he's out of town. She told him he was going to need to find someone else. Karen steals navigation cones. A dozen people lost. I'm a hiking guide in Arizona. People come from all over to see the scenery. I take them on guided hikes. Most trails are intermingled with other trails or game trails, making it easy to lose one's way. Our groups are usually about 10 people. Not all participants hike at the same fitness level, and there are only 2 guides, the lead and the sweep, and participants become spread out. Therefore, we place small orange cones at trail crossings to help clients navigate our planned route. 2 miles into a 4-mile hike, the sweep begins radioing ahead that participants are lost, going in many different directions. She frustratedly asks, "Where are the cones?" I have to cancel the hike mid-trip, and we all have to turn around and navigate back to the trailhead, hoping to help sweep up participants who are lost on the way back down. Along the way, we run into a woman displaying our small orange cones proudly hung from her hiking staff. As she gets within speaking distance, I ask what she's doing with those, and she says, "Do you like them? I keep finding them along the trail. Aren't they so neat?" She was giddy. Without patience, I said, "Those are our navigation cones. I'm a hiking guide. I'm leading a hike of over a dozen people. By picking them up, you've ruined our hike and gotten people lost." "Navigation cones? Well, I've never heard of that before." "Well, lady, have you ever heard of if it's not your property, don't touch it?" With that, she went into full tantrum mode, spewing things like, "How dare you?" and lecturing me about how it was actually my fault that she was put into a position to pick them up. Then she started explaining how we actually abandoned the cones by placing them on the ground, and by law, now they were hers. After a few minutes berating me, she triumphantly kept the cones and continued along her way. Yes, we found the rest of the hikers. One poor lady had walked 3 miles past the trailhead, and we found her almost an hour later down by the main highway. Edit. The cones are temporary. The lead puts them out and the sweep picks them up. They are on the ground in discrete places for only minutes at a time, at most an hour. We have purchased permits from parks where we hike. We have explicit permission from each park to do exactly as we are doing. Follow the speed limit? If you say so. Back in my high school days, the school decided that the parking lot speed limit for cars would be 5 miles per hour. In theory, a good thing. Reduces the chance of collisions greatly, and any that happen should be very minor. Now here's the thing. The number of people that followed that is exactly 0. Not the parents, not the teachers, not the students. We are a K-12 school, so it was mostly parents. Now the administration, who has since been going on monthly power trips, didn't like that and decided to start handing out speeding, quote, tickets. Written warnings that you would lose your parking pass and get an email home. So we, the 30 of 100 high schoolers who had cars, decided to play around with it. Now normally, the car line takes about 20 minutes between when we leave. We get out a few minutes early so our cars are out of the way, and when the car line is mostly done, aside from a few stragglers. And that's with most cars going about 10 to 15 miles per hour in the giant parking lot we had. Well, that's too short, we decided. So we complied in the most malicious way possible. Every high schooler with a car did less than 5 miles per hour through the parking lot. Normally, by the time the smaller kids got into their cars, we were gone. But not anymore. We were crawling through the parking lot at idle speed. What normally took 5 minutes to clear 30 cars now took 10, and it had consequences. The entire car line for the other 500 students was also moving at idle speed. To say parents were livid is an understatement. Complaints filled the Facebook page, and the sassier parents reminded everyone that we just followed rules set by the beloved admin, beloved everywhere but the high school. With only one way out and us having to get out before parents because we were literally in the way, our change screwed up the entire car line. In fact, it got so bad that the school was told to fix it by the city, or there would be consequences since we started backing up a major road during rush hour. At the start of the next year, the habit fell out, since most of that 30 people graduated, and we went back to going a safe but above the limit speed in the parking lot. It's been 2 years and not a thing has been said. Honestly, the administration was really the cause of that in the first place, because they started handing out written warnings to people that were speeding. So them driving slower wasn't even so much out of pettiness or spite. They actually kinda had to if they didn't want to lose their parking passes. So this was really the direct result of the admins trying to enforce their own rules. Guess one way only doesn't apply to everyone. I was at a very popular park today. Lots of people having picnics and parties, so pretty busy. The road around the park is one way only, with parking on the right side of the road only and a parking lot at the back. Everything is clearly marked. As I was driving to the parking lot, I noticed the 2 cars in front of me pulling over to the right. Why? Because a guy must have missed his friend's picnic when he was driving in the park, and instead of parking and walking or driving out the exit and circling back to the entrance, which would have taken 2 minutes, he decided to turn around in the parking lot and drive the wrong way. Now I probably could have moved, but instead, I drove forward and stopped right next to a car parked on the right, so there was nowhere for this guy to drive. I sat there until he backed his way out to the parking lot. Then, since I had all the time in the world, I sat there making him turn the right way and leave the park to circle around and drive the right way on the road. He felt entitled to drive the wrong way, I felt entitled to teach him a lesson. Alright guys, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching, I do appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe for more Reddit content, and I'll see you next time.